Hello and welcome to a special trending topic segment of the September 22 edition of the Presale Pulse. I'm Ryan Lalonde, and joined by me today, Emily Canada's Executive Vice President of Marketing, Suzana Goncalves. Now, the Presale Pulse looks at some of the macroeconomic trends in both the presale and resale market, performance data and insights. But today, we're going to talk something a little bit different, something that's close to all Vancouverites' hearts, one of the hottest topics requested by our viewers today. And Suze, what's on your mind?
Well, Ryan, on October 15th, British Columbians will hit the polls to select new councillors as well as their new mayor. And as often the case, the questions of housing supply and housing affordability will be key issues that are on the minds of residents and voters.
I think given how much the real estate market has been in the news recently and the strong price appreciation that we've seen over the previous 2 years, that will definitely be the case, Suze. And let's begin first by talking about why this election matters. Why should voters care, and what impact will the results of this election have on their lives, especially in relation to the issues of housing?
Yeah, and to answer that question, I think we start by looking no further than the recent approval process of the Broadway Plan. As many of our viewers know, the Broadway Plan is a 30-year growth and development policy that has been in the works since spring of 2018. Now, it's intended to densify the Broadway corridor in order to support the upcoming SkyTrain extension. And while there was and still continues to be a lot of debate on the direction and focus of this plan, it's clear that it will have a significant impact on housing affordability in our city. In the end, following dozens of amendments scaling back the provisions within, the plan was passed by a 10-4 vote by the very same councillors who are now up for re-election.
Very interesting, Suze, and personally, I also think it's very straightforward. The plan doesn't go far enough. One way to illustrate this is by looking at the Cambie Street corridor and how much of a missed opportunity that was. 6-story over rapid transit lined by single-family houses. Very clear. Now, when it comes to urban planning, we have to think outside of the box. We have to think outside of our comfort zone to rise to the opportunity. BC has always had an undersupply of housing, and we need big solutions to address such a big problem.
Yeah, I completely agree. Additionally, we can look to other areas of Canada for examples of what has happened in areas where anti-development candidates were voted in. Now, the Toronto City Council, for example, in July approved a growth funding tools measure that increased development charges for new residential units by up to 46%. And when you consider that, according to CMHC's recent analysis, 20 to 26% of the price of new homes are attributed to government charges. The implications and impact of such a large increase of 46% then quickly comes into focus.
It's amazing how when you think about the price of a home, you don't think about the taxes and charges that are levied by the municipalities that they exist within.
Yeah, it's not, I think, widely known by the public.
Now, another great example that highlights this, and a more local one, is the recent fight between a real estate developer and the city of White Rock. GSC Capital Group, they received a development permit back in 2018 from the city to construct a 12-story tower. Following years of careful planning and deliberations, that same year, the new incoming council introduced new zoning restrictions and retroactively revoked GSC's approved application that halted their project midstream. Despite several appeals and challenge to the BC Supreme Court, GSC ultimately is unable to proceed, and that land still to this day sits empty.
Now, I see something similar happening across other key neighborhoods in Metro Vancouver. Just look at West Vancouver, where the 2018 OCP called for building over 250 new units per year. But in the past 4 years, only 500 new units were approved. That is a big gap to the target in that OCP. And we also know that development funds a good portion of infrastructure projects, which can suffer with this approach.
And the difference, yet again, was in the attitudes towards development of the councillors on the board. Now, NIMBYism has been a backseat driver and in some cases riding shotgun on municipal approvals, just towing a boatload of price escalation into the markets. The solution is to elect officials that are willing to work with development community, finding a good balance of delivering much needed housing in a way that actually benefits the community. Now, there's a study in 2020 showed that 30% of homeowners and 60% of renters are in homes that are also considered unsuitable. So this isn't just a conversation about young families and new immigrants. It's also a conversation about the stability of our housing long term.
Yeah, in a city that's already infamous for a difficult development process and an unaffordable housing market, we need to carefully consider the development philosophies of our future elected officials. And nobody is suggesting that developers should just be allowed to do whatever they want, but we need a good balance.
And it's so easy to point fingers, but just ultimately an unpredictable decision and somewhat of an archaic approval process. It creates distrust between developers and the city officials, and it's unconducive to the larger goal that both sides have, which is let's create beautiful communities for our residences to enjoy and live in.
And affordability. So the message here is get informed on your local candidates and what they stand for. Get engaged, and of course, most importantly, get out and vote. And on that note, that does actually wrap up our trending topic segment. We hope you found some value in today's episode. The MLA advisory team is active in every major market across Canada and is digging deep into some of the micro trends happening right now. It's our goal to provide our viewers with actionable intelligence and to stay real estate intelligent. Thanks for joining us, and see you next month.
And we'll see you at the polls.